Have you ever watched a UFC fight and wondered, how do these guys survive that? With every punch, kick and submission, it feels like danger is lurking around every corner. But is the UFC really as dangerous as it seems? Or is it just another part of the show, exaggerated for the cameras? Let's break it down and get to the truth. First, let's talk about the sport itself. The UFC, or Ultimate Fighting Championship, is often considered the pinnacle of mixed martial arts, MMA. Fighters in the UFC go through rigorous training, testing their limits in various fighting disciplines such as boxing, wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Muay Thai. But with all the training, it's important to remember that UFC is still combat. Fighters are facing off in a cage, and their goal is to either knock out their opponent or make them tap out. There's no getting around the fact that it's a violent sport, and there's always an inherent risk involved when you're talking about full contact competition. The question isn't whether the UFC is dangerous, it's how dangerous it really is, compared to other sports and activities. Sure, there's the obvious risk of injury, but how does it stack up against, say, football or even boxing? In MMA, it's not just about punches to the face. The risk is in the grappling, joint locks, and submissions that can cause a lot of internal damage if done incorrectly. Fighters could end up with broken bones, torn ligaments, concussions, and even worse, long-term brain injuries. But it's not just the physical injuries we have to worry about. The mental and emotional toll is often overlooked. Fighters put their bodies through hell during training camps, leading to extreme exhaustion and sometimes even depression. And once they step into the octagon, the mental strain only increases. The pressure to win, the fear of losing, and the anxiety of facing an opponent who's trained just as hard can weigh heavily on a fighter's mind. These psychological factors can be just as dangerous as physical injuries. Now, I just want to take a moment to thank you for sticking with me through this. I know UFC can be a topic that divides opinions, but you're here, reading, learning, and thinking critically about it, which means a lot. You're helping open the conversation about how we view combat sports. Whether you love the UFC or think it's too dangerous, you're here to understand, and that's powerful. The UFC has taken steps over the years to try to make the sport safer for fighters. There are rules in place to prevent illegal strikes like eye pokes or groin shots, and fighters are medically tested before each match to ensure they're fit to compete. But even with these precautions, there's only so much that can be done to eliminate the inherent risks of fighting. The UFC can't wrap every fighter in bubble wrap before every fight, and the danger will always be there. So, is the UFC dangerous? Yes, it is. But it's also important to note that the fighters know what they're getting into. They are some of the toughest, most disciplined athletes in the world. They train for years to reach that level, and they understand the risks. Just like in any other sport, there's always a risk of injury, but the UFC takes steps to minimize that risk. Fighters themselves know the price they might pay for stepping into that octagon, and they make the choice to do so willingly. At the end of the day, combat sports, especially the UFC, push the limits of human endurance. It's dangerous, yes, but it's also a showcase of athleticism, grit, and skill. The danger is part of the draw for many fans, and for the fighters, it's a way to test themselves in a way that few other sports allow. Does that make it right? That's up for you to decide. But we can't ignore the fact that UFC is a dangerous sport, and the fighters who step into the octagon do so with full knowledge of the risks. As the sport evolves, hopefully we'll see even more improvements in fighter safety and regulations. But for now, the UFC remains one of the most thrilling and dangerous sports out there. And whether you're a fan or not, it's hard not to be captivated by the intensity of the fight.